Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Seahawk Boy Mondays on a Tuesday because of the Memorial Day holiday. So I thought I'd just take that day off and come on a toxically masculine Tuesday and do a Seahawk Boys update video. Not a lot going on, not a lot of news around the league. There's some stuff about getting rid of OTAs. There's some stuff about the Seahawks, though, which I think is really pretty interesting stuff. So it all centers around we're going to look at the mailbag today. We're going to go look at some back and forth I had with Rob Staton over on his blog. And I appreciate, Rob, if you should catch wind of this, I appreciate that you engage with me and discuss with me and give me your opinion without, any undue uh, frustration or anger or anything. We disagree on a few things. I support about 80% of his takes. About 20% of them I don't. And he allows discussion to go on his blog. It's never personal, and I appreciate that. And it's really interesting that it's never personal because what we're going to get into today is a major national football personality that does let it get personal. Okay, welcome back. We're going to do a short update video here this week and just kind of check into things. OTAs went on. Everybody looked great in shorts. It's funny because, wow, Justin Fields just looked like he was going to be better than Russell Wilson in shorts in training camp in OTAs. Like anybody doesn't look great in shorts. Actually, who didn't look great in shorts? Caleb Williams, who I felt like all along was overrated as the number one prospect in this draft. And I have serious questions about his character, far more serious questions about his character than I did, for instance, Spencer Rattler. But I don't know about Spencer Rattler's character issues. I just know what I saw from Caleb Williams, which is Cam Newton 2.0, a guy who's just me, who's going to be doing the Superman thing or his version of that, and doesn't really have what it's going to take to lead you to a Super Bowl win, a guy with great physical talents who will never win a championship. That's what I see when I look at Caleb Williams and why I probably would not have taken him number one. Although I think you'd have to be nuts not to, and I might have been pressured into it if I was a GM. But I'm like, wow, I would have found somebody else to take, like Michael Penix. But that having been said, my kitty wants out. That having been said, some stuff happened this week that I thought was pretty interesting. Mina Kimes is a ESPN football personality. She's female. She's Asian. She makes a big deal out of being female and Asian, and somehow she got a job with ESPN in like 2013. Um, she was a business writer before that, and for some reason, they have her on and she talks about football a lot, and she likes to talk about the Seahawks because she and her dad are apparently bonded through the Seahawks as a team, and that's great. Thanks, Mina. I appreciate you being a fan, but what I'm not a big fan of are her football takes because number one, I don't think she knows anything about football, and I don't really like what she says, but she says something very interesting this week. She talked about the Seahawks' problems on third down in 2023. And I'm going to get to that in a second. And, the Seahawks have had a problem on third down for many, many, many years going. I think it's a Pete Carroll thing. But she said, well, it's not a Geno Smith thing. There's nothing wrong with Geno Smith. So let's flip on over to what Mina said and bring that up on the screen and listen to her input on ESPN's NFL Live. I think it was last Thursday or so. Here we go.
Here's a stat about Geno Smith that's going to blow your mind. On first down in the NFL, you know where he ranked in QBR? First. It wasn't Mahomes, It wasn't Lamar Jackson, it wasn't Brock Purdy, it was Geno Smith. But then on second down, that dropped to 14th, and third down, it dropped to 21st because of the lack of protection. And that is job number one for Ryan Grubb. You have to figure out how to get this offensive line to play better. You have new players, You can improve the quick passing game. He has to do whatever it takes to protect Geno Smith because Geno Smith was not the problem in this offense last year.
You were right.
Here's a stat about Geno Smith that's going to blow your mind.
This
On
again.
first down the NFL, you know where he ranked in QBR? First. It wasn't Mahomes,
wow.
it wasn't Lamar Jackson, it wasn't Brock Purdy, it was Geno Smith. But then on second down, that dropped to 14th, and third down, it dropped to 21st because of the lack of protection. And that is job number one for Ryan Grubb. You have to figure out how to get this offensive line to play better. You have new players, you can improve the quick passing game. He has to do whatever it takes to protect Geno Smith because Geno Smith was not the problem in this offense last year.
Okay, so she's coming in and she's saying Geno Smith was not the problem with this offensive line. Yes, he was. Or sorry, with this third down offense. Yes, he was. Geno was the problem. And there have been problems for years in the Seahawks offense under Pete Carroll with doing things on third down. Now, having said that, she's using QBR as a stat. Okay, QBR. That's ESPN's quarterback rating. Now, to anybody who doesn't know what QBR is basically it's a complete joke. It's not something that anybody takes seriously. Certainly not something I would take seriously. Certainly not something as a stat that anybody should take seriously, because as we go back to when QBR came out. Now, look, Mike Florio has something against ESPN. I think he worked for them for a while. They fired him. It didn't go over well for him. But when QBR first came out, he went back and he looked at all of the games under the QBR system. And what he found out was that the all-time best game ever, according to QBR, in NFL history was a 186-yard, 2-interception performance by Charlie Batch against the Buccaneers in 2010. QBR is a joke. QBR does not tell you anything. It does not give you any insights. It is just another really dumb metric that was created by ESPN to give them something to talk about on their football shows. So first of all, you can't rely on QBR for anything. I mean, if you're going to look at a stat that actually has some value, it's passer rating. And of course, last video, I talked about MBR, Mike Barra rating, where I took just what I think are the most important stats and said, this is how you evaluate a quarterback. I place a much higher emphasis, for instance, on touchdown to interception ratio. And what I'd like to do is get a calculator together that measures what's called toxic differential, which is explosive plays given up versus explosive plays produced. And that's a very important stat. It was created or a metric created by Brian Billick back in the early 2000s. And I think it's certainly something valuable to look at. But so Mina comes on with this and she says this stuff and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's great, Mina. Why are you on my TV? Why are you in my feed? Now, the truth is, X does some weird stuff. X does some stuff that I don't like at all. A bunch of simps came on and agreed with her. I think it was Dan Orlovsky said, oh, she's not wrong. Well, yeah, she is. We're going to talk about why she's wrong. But I couldn't help myself. I'm sitting here on Twitter X. And, Twitter X does this thing where they have followed and for you. And following is people that you're actually following. Now, I don't follow Mina Kimes for my Seahawk Boy account on Twitter. I don't, because I don't care what she thinks, because I don't think she knows anything about football, because she's never laced up the pants, put on the shoulder pads, donned the helmet, memorized plays, gone out and fulfilled her assignment, and gotten creamed by a bigger, stronger, faster guy, or made an amazing play and a tackle in practice or at a game. She doesn't know anything about it. And I do object to her as a DEI hire because I just think that there's lots of guys, thousands of guys who've actually played football at the high school, the college, and the professional level who can provide insight to the game that I don't have, that I, with my 15-year-old, 16-year-old league, junior high school league experience, do not have. And that's what I'm looking for. And I think that's what men in general are looking for in their football analysis. But yet, networks are bombarding us with all of these female experts. Literally, they're hiring women analysts, color analysts for NHL hockey. No woman has ever played NHL hockey. It's ridiculous. And that is a political thing. I want to keep this channel not political, but it's my fuse is short. It's where I'm coming from. So she comes on and she makes a statement, and it's in my for you feed. And for you is just designed to put stuff up there that's diametrically opposed to what you're usually interested in order to trigger you into responding. Well, guess what? It worked on me. I bit, I responded. So what did I say? I said, "What man told you that?" And this is over on my Mike Barra 333 regular account. For those of you that don't know, I have the Seahawk Boy account. It's just for fun. It's just for football and sports, Manchester City, fuck United, and stuff. And I try to keep everything else separate. But Mike Barra 333 has got all the stuff about my alien stuff, my books, my lectures, my TV appearances, all that stuff. But it appears in my feed, and I'm like, "Who told you that?" So then she responds a couple of days ago, 3 4 days ago. "What woman told you, dash, dash, dash? Just kidding. Then you'd have to speak to one." Well, okay. Fair enough, Mina. Fair enough. I think you're a DEI hire. You think I'm an incel. So it got personal right away. Okay. So I responded to this. Let me see if I can find it. I responded to that and posted, I posted some pictures. Yeah, here's actual photographs. Yes, I really struggle with the ladies. You wouldn't be defensive about it if I wasn't dead on. And we both know it. So look, the reality is I have an entirely different life. I do lots of things. I speak at conferences. I'm on TV. I don't have a problem with the ladies. And after that, Mina didn't say another thing to me, which is okay, fine. And I'm not bragging here, but Mina didn't say another thing to me. And then people were in there and they just attacked me. I mean, they just really went after me and called me all kinds of names because, look, butt hurt pronoun using people are really defensive and they get really personal and they get really mean. And I'm like, okay. And so I would basically just, rebut, block, rebut, block, rebut, block. And it just became a big circle jerk for them. And so it was like, okay, but we didn't ever discuss, and she did not want to get into a discussion of the actual facts. Is it Geno's fault or not? She got personal immediately, and I'm like, that's fine, but as a public person, you shouldn't have thin skin, especially when you weren't hired for your football knowledge. Now, look, I'm just going to tell you something else. I've done a shit ton of TV. I've done the sit down interview things like that. I've done the live spots on Fox News and other channels talking about the things I know about, that I'm an expert in. Aliens, science, physics, extraterrestrial life, aerospace, engineering. All those things I've talked about on TV. And I'm just going to tell you this. I watched her in that sequence. She did not write that sequence. Somebody wrote that sequence for her. And I'm guessing a man who knows a lot about football and gave her that information so she could relate it. And there were no back and forth questions. That's the other thing about news TV. It's all staged. Nobody challenged her. I would have challenged her on that if I was the host of the show, but nobody does that on these shows. Everybody knows what they're going to say. It's all programmed. Believe me, I've been there. I was hired for a reality show for the Science Channel where I was supposed to be the crazy conspiracy guy. See, these are my books back there. Sold 100,000 books, yada, yada, yada. So I knew she wasn't really talking about something that she knew about. When you know a subject inside and out and they ask you a question, boom, I just again, watch my TV appearances. They're on my YouTube channels, Fox News, and all that stuff. And I will just talk from what I know. She's not doing that. So she made it really personal. I responded. But what we didn't ever get to is Geno the problem on third down? And she said no. And then, of course, Hawk Blogger, who is not, Brian Numhauser, who's not exactly the smartest guy in Hawkland, from my perspective, um, came on and responded to this in order to defend her. And again, guys, I'm just gonna let you know, white knighting a girl is not the way to get a girl's attention. Just so you know, just a little bro code here. All right. The only guy she responded to out of all these 200 people that attacked me was me, the guy who criticized her. So that just a little bit of information there. So let's zoom on over to Numhauser and listen to what he has to say about this. We're just going to let this go for a second. And he posted a short where he said, "Hey, I don't really think that Geno Smith is the problem." Well, I'm going to disagree with that very, very, very significantly. So let's pop on over here just a second. And let me get rid of this kitty. This is a live stream. All right, let's listen to what Brian Nemhauser has to say about this particular situation. Mute up and play.
This is actually a great question and an understandable thought that Geno has to be part of the third down problem. The truth is that Geno, when under pressure last year, was the 9th rated quarterback in PFF passing grade at 57.2. But when he was kept clean, he was the 5th rated passer in the NFL at over 91 of a grade, which is elite of the elite. And so the issue is not so much that Geno can't handle third down. It is that the Seahawks were pressured on third down more than any other team in those situations. And when the vast majority of your third down opportunities as a passer are under pressure, you're getting the 57.2 version of Geno instead of the 91.1. So they've got to fix the protection on the line to make Geno a great third down quarterback.
Okay. Geno will never be a great third down quarterback, ever. And so some other people came back and said, look, I'm looking at this whole controversy. I'm looking at Geno Smith, and some other people came in and they came up with some interesting information. This is a website I'm following now, or a Twitter X account, Pacific Northwest Sports Hub. And he's responded, and I think this is a great bunch of information, and said, hey, Geno Smith had the lowest sack percentage, 5.8% per pass attempt in his career last year. Anything below 6% is good. So either he turned into Michael Vick and can evade any pass rush, or maybe the O-line wasn't that bad. They allowed pressure, but no sacks. The QB needs to play better. And again, he had a 6.7 sack percentage in 2020. Well, that's 2015, not 2022. So here's what he's saying. And then some people said, well, hey man, it's not hard. It's hard to argue that Seattle's O-line was bad. Geno has gotten better and better. No, Geno hasn't gotten better and better. Geno has gotten worse. And then he said, look, I just did. They had one of the lowest sack percents per pass attempts in the NFL. Fantastic coaching to get that much out of a group destroyed by injuries. They're just an easy target if you don't want to look deeper at the actual reasons we lost. And then Donald Trump comes in and says sacks allowed is not as important as pressure rate and the amount of time the QB has to get rid of the ball. NPN Pacific Northwest Sports Hub says, I disagree. I think it's more important. Sacks are a culmination of pressure. Without a sack, how much pressure was really there? It's too hard to quantify types of pressure, so we use what we have. So here's the point that's being made here that I think is really important, which is that pressure is not the same thing as getting sacked. It's not. It's how you handle the pressure that matters. Every quarterback, except maybe Mahomes, who usually has Pro Bowl protection, every quarterback gets pressured on third down. Every single one. Geno couldn't handle the pressure, which is why the Seahawks were so ineffective on third down. He gets rid of the ball too fast. Remember how Russell Wilson, he holds the ball too long, so he takes more sacks. That's true. But he also made way more plays downfield by holding the ball and evading the rush. Geno's not as mobile. Geno doesn't evade the rush. He doesn't recognize where the rush is coming from as easily. And they have the one thing in common. They both had Pete Carroll's offensive coordinators, offensive lines, and protection schemes. The simple fact is that the quarterback is the problem. And for Nemhauser, first of all, he agrees with everything Mina says. He worships the ground she walks on. Maybe there's other reasons for that. We don't know. But the fact is that there are people, and Staton has pointed this out, there are people who will defend Geno Smith. It's like, you say anything negative about Geno Smith? Oh, you're the problem. We're going to cancel you. Just like everybody on Mina's stream tried to cancel me because I said she doesn't know what she's talking about. So if you can't see that Geno is the problem, and you can't see that the Seahawks need to get better, not just on third down, but on every down, then Geno Smith, you don't know ball. You don't know ball, by the way, is not an insult. Nor is it a flex, nor is it a put down. It's just, I don't really have a good argument to counter what you just said, so I'm going to just say you're stupid. That's all it is. And I got a lot of that in Mina Kimes' replies, her interventions. So not only do I think she shouldn't be commentating on football, and I think that women should not be commentating on men's sports that they have never played. And I find it obnoxious, and I'm sick of it being shoved down my throat by woke corporations like ESPN. I also just basically disagree with her premise. Geno clearly doesn't handle things well on third down. And that's why the Seahawks are so ineffective on third down. Why is it that all of the great quarterbacks are effective on third down? It's because they're great. Okay. Now, Nemhauser also wanted to go in PFF grades. PFF grades are horseshit. They're not real stats. They're fake metrics created by a bunch of geeks who also probably have never really played the game beyond, my level, junior high, 15, 16 years old. And they're meaningless. The stats that matter are passer rating, completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio, number of touchdowns, explosive or toxic differential. Those are the things that matter. And Geno is mid in every single one of those things. And last year he played like it. There's nothing wrong with that. Geno is not the worst quarterback in the NFL. And he's made some throws and done some things in the last 2 years that we had never seen in his first 10. We have to admit that. But he's not good enough. And that's why he needed to be replaced a long time ago. Okay, so enough of my discussions on female commentators. By the way, Danica Patrick was a commentator on the Indy 500 this weekend. And you can give her some credit because, yes, she's at least been in an Indy car and didn't horribly embarrass herself in an Indy car. So she has a place discussing it. Now, would I have hired her? No. I would have Paul Tracy on the broadcast because Paul Tracy's going to tell you the truth. He's going to spit it right out. He's going to get in your face about it. But Paul Tracy is also a Republican who voted for Donald Trump. So he got fired by NBC and replaced by Danica Patrick. Now, Danica also supposedly won an IndyCar race. Well, again, I'm going to tell you what I know on the inside of that, which is Danica Patrick, who is this little tiny little person, was given souped up engines her entire time in IndyCar, and she had power steering because she couldn't physically handle the car. Those are true. You can go look at IndyCar rumor mills and talk to people in the business. And she left IndyCar because the other drivers found out she was getting better engines and power steering and threatened to go public with it. And they had to all be paid off. And she agreed to leave and go to NASCAR, where they gave her where giving people souped up engines and power steering is no big deal. So, yet, having said that, she managed to not kill anybody while she was driving IndyCar. And she was in the middle back pack of IndyCar. So she had some knowledge and was fine on the broadcast. Just so you know. All right. So all these interesting things, brought up some more stuff that happened over on Rob's blog, Rob Staton's blog, where he posted about the quarterback dilemma facing the Seahawks and other NFL teams. And he was essentially talking about the deal that Jared Goff just got. He said Goff is not an upper echelon passer. I disagree. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in this league, top 10 thrower of the ball. He talked about how teams are now reaching for quarterbacks like Bo Nix. And so then there was some discussion and some comments on this particular presentation. There were some comments and things that we went back and forth with. And he talked about what they could do next year. And again, I'm going to come back to this again and tell everybody, if the Seahawks were able to trade DK Metcalf, let's say for a first and a third, maybe the market's soft, maybe they can only get a second and a fifth. But if they trade DK Metcalf and get him off their books for 2025, and then they cut Geno Smith, who's up for $38 million, and they cut all the 30-year-old guys aren't really that good. Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones, Tyler Lockett, cut those 4 guys and trade DK. They have $75 million and 2 firsts, or it's 2 seconds. So let's say 2 firsts, a second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, and a fifth next year to get a new quarterback, a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 3, a defensive tackle 2, and a defensive tackle 3, plus any other positions they need to fill. I think I'd do that deal. But that's what they're going to have to do. I think they're going to do something drastic. So anyway, I went in there and I commented. And of course, I was polite. And we had some discussions about, there were some people saying, look how many franchise quarterbacks have been in each draft. 2023 is CJ Stroud. 2022, Brock Purdy. 2021, Trevor Lawrence. 2020, Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, Hurts, Kyler, Josh, Lamar, Mahomes, Watson, Goff, Dak. None in 2015, 2014, Luck and Russ in 2012. So that's 18 franchise quarterbacks drafted since 2010. 15 were drafted in the first or second round. 11 were drafted in the top 10. 7 were drafted in the top 3. So this is Brian, by the way. So 57 quarterbacks were drafted since 2010 in the first and second rounds. 15 out of 57 doesn't sound great. If you're picking outside the top 3 picks then the odds get much worse. And so, in other words, what I've been saying for 3 years, you can find franchise quarterbacks, but you generally have to get them at the top of the draft to nail them down. Odds are actually better than I expected, 8.5%. And that's out of the 57 total quarterbacks drafted. If you look at just the first round drafted quarterbacks, the hit rate is much higher. I mean, look at every year for what? The last 6-7 years, there has been a quarterback that you could say is a franchise quarterback or potential. Stroud, Purdy, Lawrence, Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, Hurts, Kyler, Josh Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, Watson, Goff, Dak. Wow, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. We don't know. What is that, 7 or 8 years? There's franchise quarterbacks in most drafts now. What you have to do is you have to go get them. You have to be willing to go get them. And he's saying the number of first-round, busts at quarterback position is terrifying. Actually, I don't think it's that bad in the first round. But I said, hey, the number of first-round busts at every position is terrifying. You may as well roll the dice on a quarterback with some star quality. And then Rob came in and addressed the issue to me, which he's done before. I was as big a fan of Stroud as anyone, and I've advocated being aggressive to get a quarterback, but this isn't even a topic I've turned to once since last year because no, it was never going to happen. It's too easy to say, why didn't they just trade 3 first-round picks for a player? This was my in response to another comment I made about going up to number one. Why didn't they just trade the 3 first-round picks for a player who didn't even go first overall? What if the Panthers just offered more? What if the Bears anticipated Carolina sucking in 2023 and preferred their bid? You act a bit like all Seattle had to do was push a button and they'd have Stroud. We might as well go back through every draft and bemoan every great player they didn't take. I can do that. As if the Seahawks are the only ones picking. As I said, I love Stroud and wanted them to address the QB, but I've seen you arguing on Twitter about this and other stuff, such as why didn't they take Rattler in round one? You aren't being fair or realistic. Well, I don't exactly agree with that. The Seahawks had more juice than the Panthers to go up to number one. I think that's indisputable. In 2022 and 2023, 2023 and 2024 draft picks, they did. What they lacked was the will. What I want to see is the will to go get the QB. They don't seem to have that. That's my problem with the Schneider approach. They've never even made a call, as far as we know, about the top pick in 2022. I meant 2023. Let's assume your scenario is true that the Bears wouldn't have dealt with the Seahawks for number one no matter what they offered. They still could have taken Levis at number 5 or at number 20 or traded up into the back end of the first or early second to get him. They did none of those things. I also fundamentally don't think you can pay too much for a guy that can do the things that, say, Stroud can do. This year, they certainly could have taken Rattler many times. They didn't. I don't care what the character issues are. Short of rape or murder, he was certainly worth a low-risk chance on the 136th pick. What bothers me is that they don't seem to be making a serious effort to get a quarterback, and Sam Howell is not serious. That tells me they don't recognize how to win in the NFL in 2024, and other teams do. That's why they went for quarterbacks early and often and against their perceived needs at other positions and draft boards. Having said that, I did hear a rumor from Ian Rappaport that Schefter, that Justin Fields was approached by a team with a veteran quarterback and turned them down. That sounds a lot like the Seahawks to me. I'd certainly feel a lot better if they were the team because that would show they were at least somewhat in on the reality that they have to get better quarterback. As it stands now, I think we'll be back next year having the same discussion because I don't think they are realistic about the problem. I hope I'm wrong and there is a secret plan to get a franchise quarterback next year. So I would just say to Rob, thanks, man. I appreciate the response and the discussion. I don't think your points are well taken. I think the Seahawks could have outbid the Panthers. And again, looking at the points value of what the Panthers offered, the Seahawks could have given up 5 and 20, the 37th pick, which was Derek Hall, who was a bust, the Byron Murphy pick this year, and a 2025 second, and it would have amounted to 438 more points than what the Panthers offered, and not really have hurt the Seahawks all that much. Not really have done that much to hurt them. So the end result is that the deal was there for the making in 2023. They made no effort to make it because arrogant Pete and John didn't think they needed a quarterback. Well, last year, watching the huge drop-off in third down performance, among other things, by Geno Smith, guess what? I think they begin to realize or think maybe they need a quarterback. Maybe. So I don't think you can understate or under evaluate the need to get a quarterback. And the problem is because they didn't do it last year, because they didn't do it this year, they could have invested in a young quarterback for as little as a 5th round pick, the 136th pick in the draft. And Spencer Rattler, a guy who everybody admits has 1st or 2nd round talent. Now, Rob makes the bigger argument, well, there must have been some reason he fell. And all the teams agreed. Well, I'm going to come back again. That doesn't make him right. Because all or most of the teams agreed. 31 teams didn't think Lamar Jackson was worth the 1st round pick. 74 teams didn't think Russell Wilson was worth a 1st round pick. 198 teams didn't think Tom Brady was worth picking. Russell Wilson, 74 teams didn't think he was even worth the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round pick. 24 teams didn't think Aaron Rodgers was worth the first round pick. Pretty sure all those guys are going to the Hall of Fame. So that is not an argument. I respect Rob Staton a lot, but I don't think that's a good argument. Just because other teams passed on him doesn't mean the Seahawks should have passed on him. The Broncos recognized they had to have a new quarterback. Okay. Didn't work out with Russ for whatever reason. I blame Sean Payton, but they recognized it. According to Rob and others, Bo Nix was not worth a first round pick. I disagree. I saw him play live. I came away impressed enough to say he's a first round pick. They thought he was a second or third round pick. But the Broncos knew that they had to have him. And they knew that if they waited until their next pick at 86, Bo Nix wasn't going to be there. Because somebody else that needed a quarterback was going to take him. So they took him. And that was the right move for their football team. The Seattle Seahawks completely failed. Great. Sorry, just waiting for my connection to come back together here. Okay, I don't know if I'm on the air anymore. I seem to have an internet outage here. Okay, well, the point I was going to get to, and I'll have to re-upload this maybe as a recording. The point I was going to get to is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks did not recognize that they have a problem at quarterback. They did not recognize that they had to have one. And that is why they passed on a really good quarterback talent-wise multiple times. Because unlike the Denver Broncos, they do not recognize that they have a problem. And I think that's definitely the mindset. And I think that means we're going to be right back here a year from now trying to figure out where their quarterback is going to come from. All right, guys, because of my connection problems, I am going to let this go, but I appreciate each and every one of you being here that watches this. Go ahead and comment on any of the channels, Mike Bear 2, Mike Bear 3, Mike Bear 333, or on Seahawk Boy Mike. Go ahead and fill in your comments. Let me know. Tell me what you think. Argue with me. Try to be polite. If you're polite to me, I'll be polite to you. All right? But Geno ain't good enough, and Mina does not know ball.